The first time she reached toward me in the darkness, I thought she was trying to make sure I was still there. The second time, her fingertips slowly traced the old scar that ran along my spine, and I realized she had found the part of me I had spent years trying to hide from the world. Neither of us spoke. Outside the tiny mountain cabin, rain pounded the roof hard enough to shake the windows. Inside, we were pretending to be a couple for one impossible weekend, but somewhere between the lies we were telling everyone else and the silence we were keeping from each other, the truth had quietly found us. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can heal wounds that pride never could, and if you still believe in second chances and unexpected love, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another emotional story. 3 days earlier, my biggest concern had been surviving another ordinary week at work. I had spent years building a life that looked stable from the outside but felt strangely empty every time I came home to my quiet apartment. My name was Ethan, I was 32, and after a devastating breakup that had shattered my trust, I had convinced myself that solitude was safer than risking another heartbreak. My co-workers thought I was dependable. My neighbors thought I enjoyed living alone. The truth was much simpler. I had forgotten what it felt like to let someone truly know me. Everything changed because of a phone call from my college friend Mason. His younger sister, Lily, needed a favor that sounded ridiculous at first. Their grandmother's 80th birthday celebration had become a family reunion where every cousin, aunt, and uncle would arrive with questions about Lily's love life. After ending a difficult engagement months earlier, she had grown exhausted by pitying looks and endless lectures about settling down. Mason asked if I would pretend to be her boyfriend for one weekend so she could enjoy her grandmother's celebration in peace. Every sensible part of me wanted to refuse. Pretending to be someone's partner sounded like the beginning of a disaster. But Mason reminded me that Lily had once spent weeks helping my mother after surgery while I was stuck overseas on a business trip. She had expected nothing in return. Kindness had always come naturally to her. I couldn't ignore that. When I arrived at the mountain lodge where the reunion was being held, I barely recognized her. The cheerful college student I remembered had become a woman carrying quiet strength behind tired eyes. She smiled warmly, but there was sadness beneath it, as if life had taught her to celebrate carefully because happiness rarely stayed long. The first day was surprisingly easy. Holding hands for photographs, laughing during family games, and pretending to share private jokes became almost effortless. Her relatives adored us together. Her grandmother looked at us with the kind of peaceful joy that made the lie feel strangely cruel and strangely necessary at the same time. As the evening grew colder, a surprise storm rolled through the mountains. Roads flooded. Trees fell across the only highway leading home. The lodge manager apologized repeatedly as guests discovered that several rooms had suffered water damage from the heavy rain. There simply were not enough beds. Because everyone believed we were a couple, offering separate rooms would have raised questions that neither of us was prepared to answer. There was only one available room left with one small bed. I laughed awkwardly when the manager handed us the key, pretending the situation wasn't uncomfortable. Inside, however, my heart raced with anxiety. Sharing a bed with someone I barely knew felt impossible. The room itself was beautiful despite its size. A stone fireplace glowed softly in one corner while rain tapped endlessly against the windows. Beyond the glass, lightning briefly illuminated endless forests stretching across the mountains. We agreed to stay on opposite sides of the bed with enough blankets between us to build an imaginary wall. The arrangement seemed simple enough until the electricity failed just after midnight. The heater stopped humming. The room quickly filled with cold mountain air. Without power, there was little choice except to pull the blankets closer together. Neither of us slept much. Lying awake in complete darkness has a strange way of making strangers honest. We never spoke in dramatic confessions. Instead, we shared small truths that somehow revealed everything. I admitted that I still blamed myself for a relationship that had ended years earlier. She confessed that her broken engagement wasn't simply about betrayal. It had slowly convinced her she wasn't enough. Those words lingered in the silence long after they were spoken. Hours later, while another burst of thunder rolled across the mountains, I shifted slightly because my back had begun aching. The old scar from a climbing accident years earlier always hurt whenever storms arrived. That was when I felt her hand hesitate before gently resting against my back. She wasn't trying to create romance. She wasn't trying to cross a line. Her fingertips simply followed the uneven path of the scar as though reading a story written beneath my skin. In that quiet moment, I understood something unexpected. She wasn't searching for perfection. She was trying to understand pain she couldn't see. For years I had hidden that scar because it reminded me of failure. During the accident, my younger brother had nearly died trying to rescue me. Although we both survived, guilt stayed with me far longer than the injury itself. Some wounds never disappear. They simply become quieter. The following morning, sunlight broke through the storm clouds, and neither of us mentioned what had happened during the night. Yet something had changed between us. The awkwardness was gone. In its place stood a quiet trust neither of us could explain. As the reunion continued, I noticed Lily doing small acts of kindness almost without thinking. She carried heavy trays for elderly relatives. She entertained restless children so exhausted parents could rest. She comforted a cousin whose recent divorce had left him feeling invisible. No audience applauded her. No one praised her. She simply believed people deserved kindness even when they couldn't return it. Watching her reminded me of the person I had been before disappointment taught me to protect myself. That afternoon, her grandmother invited us to walk through an old apple orchard behind the lodge. The elderly woman spoke gently about marriage, family, forgiveness, and how real love rarely arrives wearing perfect clothes or perfect timing. Her words unsettled me because they sounded less like advice and more like recognition. Maybe she already knew. Maybe grandmothers always know. The final evening of the reunion brought unexpected trouble. Lily's former fiancé arrived without warning. Seeing us together filled him with visible anger. Old accusations resurfaced. Relatives gathered nervously as painful memories threatened to overshadow the celebration. For one frightening moment, I considered stepping away and admitting everything had been pretend. But then I looked at Lily. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid her grandmother's birthday would become remembered for conflict instead of joy. Instead of arguing, I quietly redirected everyone's attention toward the celebration itself. Children began laughing again. Music resumed. Conversations slowly returned. The storm outside had finally ended. Perhaps another storm had ended inside us too. Later that night, Lily thanked me not for pretending to love her, but for protecting the people she loved from unnecessary pain. Those words stayed with me. Because somewhere during that impossible weekend, pretending had become the easiest part. The difficult part was accepting that my heart no longer knew where the performance ended and reality began. As I packed my bag the following morning, I realized I wasn't afraid of loving someone again. I was afraid of losing someone who had already shown me what genuine kindness looked like. Sometimes healing doesn't happen through grand speeches or dramatic promises. Sometimes it begins with a quiet weekend, a shared burden, a storm that refuses to end, and someone who sees the scars you've spent years hiding without ever asking you to be ashamed of them. If this story has touched your heart so far, please support the channel by liking this video, sharing it with your friends and family, subscribing for more emotional stories, and letting us know which moment moved you the most. Special request: before you finish watching, please leave a comment with the words, "Kindness heals," if you believe the deepest scars are often healed by the gentlest hearts. As we drove down the mountain that morning, the clouds finally parted, revealing golden sunlight stretching across the valley below. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel empty. It felt uncertain in the most beautiful way. I understood then that love is rarely born in perfect moments. It grows quietly through compassion, trust, forgiveness, and the courage to stay beside someone long enough to learn the story behind their scars. And sometimes, the smallest touch in the darkest night becomes the beginning of a lifetime filled with light.